Vincent. I think all of you know George Vincent, who's my security advisor, spent 10 years with the California Highway Patrol and over 20 years with the FBI, and Lynn Shank, who's my chief of staff. I thank you all for being here. I had about a 10 to 15 minute meeting with President Bush. We rode together to the airport. We had a very nice discussion. We focused on homeland security. Once again, I raised the issue of a national tiered system of warning people during alerts. This is a program I was prepared to announce for California in December. It's patterned after the successful system we used for energy. There was a stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 alert. We do the same thing on a national basis to let everyone know exactly the seriousness attached to a given threat. And when I was seeing Governor Tom Ridge in December, telling him I was about to announce this publicly for California, we'd worked it out with all the local law enforcement officials here and the FBI agents in charge. He asked me to delay announcing it so he could incorporate something like that on a national basis. I'm pleased to announce that on January 18th, they'll be meeting at the White House, to which my security advisor, George Vincent, has been invited to help provide input into a national tiered alert system so the whole country can be on the same page. So the President and I talked about that briefly on the way to the airport. We thanked one another for our cooperation on that issue because I think that's good for America to be on the same page. I also raised again my proposal to have the California Highway Patrol provide security on flights within the state of California. These are flights they take anyway as part of their natural duty assignments. It makes good sense to have them to perform security while they're on the flight anyway. The President seemed receptive to the idea. I told him I brought it up earlier with Governor Ridge and before that with Secretary Mineta, and he told his aides, let's get the governor an answer. He deserves an answer on this question. And my hope is that the answer will be positive so we can provide protection for Californians flying in-state. Fully 1/3 of the flights in California originate and end in California. That's true of other big states like Texas and Florida. So while this idea may not be uniformly applied across America, it's an idea that provides additional security to the traveling public, and it's an idea that can be replicated in Florida, Texas, possibly New York, Illinois, and provide additional protection beyond the current scope of the Federal Air Marshal Program. Those were the topics we covered in general. We talked a little bit about the energy situation in California. I thanked him for his cooperation. As you know, we built and put online 11 plants this year, which is more power put online than the last 16 years in California. And we have wonderful conservation for the people of California. That plus cooperation with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission because of President Bush's intervention was a large reason why we got through this summer without any incidents, out of any blackouts, despite a lot of dire predictions to the country. So we talked briefly about how we could get through next year and some ideas about acquisition of additional natural gas. That was the sum total of my meeting with the President. I thank him again. That's the 3rd time I've been privileged to meet with him in California. He's been very gracious with his time and been largely supportive of the ideas and suggestions that I have made.
Governor, considering the economic state of things, I'm surprised the economy never came up in your conversation with the President.
I did mention reimbursement for the cost that we are experiencing protecting Californians. All states are in the same position. Public health costs have gone up, security costs have gone up. As you know, I have the Highway Patrol on 12-hour shifts regarding various bridges, critical installations up and down the state, the electricity grid, power plants. I have the National Guard assigned to some of those bridges. The state is picking up those costs. There's a lot of public health costs associated with protection against anthrax and acquisition of other vaccines down the road. So we did seek some reimbursement, and we talked about the possibilities of when that might be forthcoming.
Governor Davis, what part of your budget, which you'll be announcing in more detail on Tuesday, what ballpark figures can you give us on the amount of your budget that's going to be given over to security, the same subject?
Well, I don't want to scoop myself, but I'll repeat what I've said publicly before. The security costs on an annual basis in this state run approximately $400 million. We spent about 130 some odd million dollars to date. Those are for security and public health costs. We spend an awful lot of time briefing physicians, nurses, hospitals, clinics, to be alert to the threat of anthrax, to recognize other potential public health problems. We've trained state employees on how to open the mail, made that tape available to the public. So there's a lot of security and public health costs that are running us on an annual basis over $400 million a year.
Governor Davis, you recently, there was a report in the paper that said you were cutting back on education, $850 million, state of California, as part of the austerity program because of our $4.5 billion shortfall expected this year and a possible $12.4 billion next year. So what other programs are you going to have to cut?
Again, I don't want to scoop myself, but I'd like to correct you. We believe the total shortfall is in the nature of a little over $12 billion over a 2-year basis. As you know, we've moved aggressively to try and solve the problem today by setting out about $2 billion of cuts we think the legislature should make. I will call a special session concurrent with the convening of the regular session so that the legislature can act on my proposed cuts. I've asked my agency heads not to spend that money consistent with existing law, so the legislature will have the opportunity to make those cuts or other cuts as they see fit. In addition, we've imposed a hiring freeze and identified another $150 million worth of cuts. Now, the budget I'll propose on Thursday will identify further reductions in the year starting July 1st. Again, I don't want to scoop myself, so I don't want to get into that detail, but I can tell you this. I will not propose an increase in taxes. I believe we can meet our obligations within our existing resources without asking people for more money.
Governor, last time you met with the president, there was a sense that you didn't get what you wanted, more relief for California's energy situation. The president says today that he's working with you. What do you say? What is your sense of it? Has your relationship with him and his administration gotten better?
I can only speak for myself, but I think the president has been responsive on most of the major issues I put before him. He was helpful in the end on energy. The appointees he made to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission spent a good deal of time with me and my advisors. They understood the problems in California, and they took action that was helpful to us. I've said that many times in public, that it was really the Bush appointees to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission that gave us relief. You couldn't get 10 people in America in the spring of 2001 who thought we'd get relief from the federal government. But we didn't quit. Starting in July the previous year, I was writing letters, testifying, badgering, calling our congresspersons, calling our 2 U.S. senators, calling the leadership in the Senate to see if we couldn't get attention focused on a problem that I believe was not entirely of California's making. In the end, everyone played their part, and the president deserves a good share of the credit.
Governor, there's kind of an elephant in the room that we're all ignoring. The election is 2 months away, and given that you had somewhat icy relations with the president last year, and you were highly critical of his administration with regards to energy policy, and now that he's so popular and apparently going to campaign on behalf of whoever your opponent is, do you have any regrets about those remarks?
Well, first of all, I don't accept your characterization. My job is to fight for Californians. We were faced with the prospect of having our energy prices go up 7 times. Just multiply your bill by 7. That wasn't fair. Californians did not ask for energy deregulation. It was thrust upon them. When the utilities were buying power, the previous year, the cost went up 4 times. I made that case to the president, and he said to me, Governor, I would do exactly what you're doing if I were in your shoes. I would clamor, I would get as much attention as I could to see that the people you represent don't get the shaft. That's what I did. I'm happy to say things work out in part because of his help, in part because I expedited the permit process, and we built 11 plants, more plants that have been built in the last 16 years combined, and most importantly because the people of this state did a wonderful job on conservation. So I don't agree with your characterization that that meeting was icy. It was friendly, it was warm. Lynn Shank was in the meeting. Did we agree on everything? No. But the president did say at that meeting, I will help you on natural gas prices, which he has, and natural gas prices were 40% of the cost of electricity. He said, I can't give you price caps. I said, fine, let's call them something else. Let's call them price mediation, but give it.
Davis, recognizing we have unemployment in this state, what actions are you taking, your administration, to stimulate the economy in California?
You'll see in my budget some major capital projects that will put people to work immediately. We've also have transportation proposals that were going to come online in '03 and '04 that we've advanced to this year.
With the 2020 plan, $100 million for infrastructure improvements? Or are you talking transportation by itself?
No, I'm talking about projects, $200 million worth of projects that were online for 2004 will come online in 2002. So we have education bonds, proposed education bonds on the ballot that will put people to work. We'll have additional transportation projects that will put people to work. We'll also have some lease sale revenue bonds for other capital projects that will put people to work. And we'll have a major announcement on unemployment insurance. All four of those programs will positively impact the economic situation of the state. Having said that, as you know, most of the levers that affect the economy are at the federal level, but we have to do everything we can, and we are. Let's make sure we do everything we can to provide security on planes in the state. Let's make sure that the states are reimbursed in one form or another for all the costs we've incurred because of this security and because of our efforts to improve public health. And we talked again going forward about how we can provide reliable electricity to the people of California. Those were the most important issues I wanted to bring to them.